And now I'm pleased to introduce the presenter for today's webinar.
Hello.
Hi, I am joined by Richard Smith. Richard is an instructional designer and adjunct faculty at Harvard Community College, and today he will be sharing with us his experience at Harvard and hopefully show your institution how it can also effectively migrate learning management systems and continue to create and implement quality online lessons. So Richard, thank you for joining us. If you are ready to get started, I can go ahead and share the screen with you.
Yes, I'm ready.
Great.
Okay, does that look like it's showing up?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah. You will also notice another name attached to this presentation, Gregory Creevy. He's another instructional designer at our college, also another adjunct faculty in 2 different divisions, which I'm also an adjunct in 2 different divisions. So I think we've got a little bit of experience on both the instructional design area as well as teaching. I've taught probably now almost 15 years online, besides obviously instructional design. You also see the title that we use is a little different internally than the title of the webinar. It's still the same presentation. We just internally we really like using the terms like energizing faculty and things like that. And obviously everyone who's at a college knows that they like terms like that. Still the same thing. Also, another thing I wanted to tell you about our presentation is that we're a Quality Matters College institution, and this presentation is also to sort of guide you on how SoftChalk works hand in hand with Quality Matters to make sure it's meeting all the Quality Matters standards and everything. So it does a lot. So let's hop on in. First, I want to talk some backstory about why we are now using SoftChalk, and it's mainly because we had problems in the past. And there's a big one, which will be case study number 3, but let's start with some of the smaller ones. My colleague Greg had history. One of the courses he does teach is History 101, and he had a problem with a last-minute textbook change. And we've all had that, where you find out, I think he found out 5 days before the semester that he had a brand new textbook and everything was completely out of order. So the first thing he did was see what publisher materials were available, because obviously we all want to like to see if there's already materials out there. But we also, most of us probably know that when you see those publisher materials, they're not always the best quality. So he had lots of material, some of it good, some of it bad. He just needed to sort of put it together a little better. So he went and used SoftChalk, and this is before, I think it might be very earlier when we started using SoftChalk, and we hadn't quite pushed it out as much as we wanted to. But he was able to, as he said on the slide, stitch the salvageable content from his previous course, put it together, stitch it together with the new publisher content, and also have a consistent look, design, and navigation. And this was a big deal, and this helped him tremendously. So that was the first sort of case study of how SoftChalk has helped us. And we'll go more into detail a little bit. Now, I want to use me as the next example. I also teach geography. I also teach computer CIS courses, so I'm all over the map. I was, and Sarah, I have to admit, I was not as, I wouldn't say fan of SoftChalk. I hadn't bought into SoftChalk as quick as Greg did. Sorry, obviously I am more now, but so I just wanted to, sort of dabble in SoftChalk. In 2 of my courses, a physical geography course and a world regional, I've had the experience of having poor textbook materials from the publisher, last-minute textbook changes, constantly redesigning it. Now, of course, I do that anyway. I'm a constant redesigner. I'm teaching a course now. I'm already redesigning it for the spring. That's just the way I am. But I want to do it on my schedule. I don't want to be forced to have to do it. So I sort of dabbled with SoftChalk, and I just used it for certain things. Like I would add in a module on Canada, maybe. I would add some material about some of the problems they've had with immigration or Quebec wanting to succeed, those kind of things. I wouldn't go full out, But I did want sort of the consistent look, design, and navigation. So I started out small, and that's the thing that was great about SoftChalk. If I didn't want to put everything in and use our LMS for everything, and use our LMS more, I could do that. And that's still what we tell people now. If you'd want to go a little bit, at a time, you can do that. And that's also, before we go to the big one, that's the case study 3, that's another thing that one of the reasons we wanted to go with SoftChalk is that we want to sort of become slightly more independent of our LMS. Our next case will go into a big problem we had with our LMS, but currently we do have Blackboard. We are, how do I say this, we're relatively happy with Blackboard, and that's a big deal. When I say relatively happy, that's a big change. But also, we just want to make sure if we do have problems in the future, or if we do, God forbid, have to change it to another LMS, which, depending on money, fiscally, things like that will happen, we want to be independent and be ready to go. So that leads us into this big one, I think, which is case study number 3. Greg titled this slide, and that's why I wish he was here for this. We call it the Great Blackboard Debacle of 2011. We were a Blackboard WebCT school, so we were going to migrate in January to Blackboard 9 from WebCT CE8. Well, that sounds great. It's the same company. So Blackboard was going to handle all the content migration. Well, if you've ever dealt with a migration, when they say everything's going to run smooth, that's never going to happen. And think about this. We were going from a Blackboard product, even though it was bought through WebCT, but it was a Blackboard product in their servers. They're going to migrate us to another server in-house. That's relatively easy migration, and that didn't work as well. So think about what would happen is if you were switching from, let's say, Angel. Actually, Angel's not the best example since they're Blackboard as well, but let's say Desire to Learn and you were switching to Blackboard. Blackboard's going to tell you it works fine. You switch from Blackboard to Desire to Learn is going to tell you it works fine. It never is. And that's where we had a big problem is Blackboard handled it. It looked amazing. But then we found problems. So, and when we talk about problems, we would find out that, we'd click it and test it. We'd log in as students. Everything would work good. But then when we had real students in January, luckily we did test it in a January mini-semester, winter semester. Well, once real students were in there, suddenly we were finding things just weren't showing up correctly and those kind of things. So that's when we realized we just wanted to be much more independent of Blackboard. Not that we don't like Blackboard, and generally, it's hard for us to even say this, but we generally like what Blackboard's providing for us now. And it's weird for us to say that, but if you're a Blackboard school, you know what I mean. We just realized that we wanted some independence, and that's where we took SoftChalk. And we really started pushing SoftChalk, especially to fix a lot of these problems that Blackboard provided for us. Also, that was great in a way. I know it's a debacle, but one thing it did was it immediately got faculty to buy in on SoftChalk. The best thing you can have is if everything breaks and something else fixes it, guess what? The faculty are going to like that. So we went in full bore onto SoftChalk, got a site license. Brand new faculty, we really encouraged SoftChalk from the start. And obviously the veteran faculty, they just wanted to fix things. And all those things SoftChalk made us more independent from our LMS. Now, we still also got to talk about the future, and this is where it sort of plays into Quality Matters. We want to encourage best practices. We do not have a standard template at our college. We have some sort of templates we like people to follow, but our college does not want a standard look and feel to their courses. Not a big fan of that. I mean, I am a fan of the standard look, but our college is not. They want the faculty to have lots of their own into each of the courses. We wanted to at least get some more, little better design. So all these kind of things you see on the slide now, a little bit more interactivity, getting away from PowerPoint, those are the best practices we wanted to encourage since we're not going to have a set template. So I'm going to go through some things and also talk to you about how Quality Matters and SoftChalk has sort of worked together or how we apply them together. If you're not a Quality Matters school, it really doesn't matter because these are the same kind of issues that you'll deal with. So the first thing is using SoftChalk made us a little bit less dependent on the LMS, that we could sort of have our own navigation. LMS or Blackboard's navigation is good. It's not always what we like. So we were able to sort of auto-generate a little bit better headings, content in a cleaner manner, and keep it, once again, independent of the LMS. So that if we did move, we can move this over to another LMS, even put it on a web page, whatever we want, but we'll still have that consistent look and feel that we want. And this has definitely helped us meet some Quality Matters standards. I listed 3 of the standards right now, and these are ones, even if you're not a Quality Matters school, these are important. Instructions how to get started, courses, tools, and basically encourage student engagement, and that things are easy navigation. SoftChalk sort of helps us meet these, and if an instructor's using SoftChalk and they've really applied it to their course, they're probably going to meet these standards quite easily. It also has helped us sort of deal with technical issues. In Blackboard and probably most LMSs, it doesn't embed technology very well. It's getting better. I noticed that Blackboard's really done much better with YouTube videos, but we also use things like in telecom videos, PDFs, Word documents, sound clips, little graphics, images. If you try to put those into a Blackboard template, it doesn't work very well. And this is where SoftChalk has allowed us to use the insert functions, put in images, all these kind of things, and just have it cleaner, more efficient. I'm teaching a class right now, one of my CIS classes. I'm teaching it in class, but I have them use Blackboard for lots of it. And I will actually refer to the things I've embedded in my SoftChalk material in class. So not even when for my online students, I'm actually using this while I'm in class. I'm going to my SoftChalk page, looking at videos, looking at clips, audio, all those kind of things. And it's just cleaner, it's efficient, and it works in almost all technologies. And that's a big thing for us. We have computers on campus that are locked down, and if you try to open one thing, you can't do it. We all experience that, and this has just made it a little better. The embedding of media is so amazing in SoftChalk. It's also helped us once again for Quality Matters. It's not going to get everything on there, but it will help you, especially on Standard 6.2, more student engagement. Also really can help you on 8.2 that allows you to have some equivalent alternatives for disability support. It's not going to do it 100%, but it gets you towards the right way of thinking. And that's oftentimes the most important pieces of anything when you're dealing with accessibility and usability. It's leading us to that correct thing, and that's where SoftChalk's been a big help for that. It's not going to one-hot you. You still have to do work. It's getting you in the right path. Also, we've used some of the tools like text poppers, which can be used, and if you're already a SoftChalk customer, this just reinforces key terms. This is something that we could not do in the LMS. It's giving us those extras that we weren't. I guess you could do it. You could find ways to do it, but this provides you nice, easy tools. Once again, it's getting us away from just depending on the LMS only. Also, that's helping us meet some Quality Matters standards. 4.1, which says the materials contribute to the stated objectives. It's not going to get you that alignment. You have to do that, but it's leading you on the right path. Current materials, it's very easy to make sure materials are up to date and current. This one is a big one, that when you're dependent on the LMS, oftentimes you find out how difficult it is to update materials. If you have SoftChalk, and I'll talk more about SoftChalk Cloud in a few minutes, that's even easier. But when you are relying on using SoftChalk, being independent LMS, you're able to update these materials much more currently. And it also depends on your course. I'm teaching CIS. I have to be very up to date. When I'm teaching physical geography, well, volcanoes haven't changed a lot over the last 20 years of the web. But but I need to make sure that everything I have in my CIS course, if I'm talking about things that happened 8 years ago in computers, my students are going to laugh at me. Because first of all, they were in like kindergarten practically. Not quite, but close. And once again, it's good for engagement. SoftChalk is also going to give us some assessment options that Blackboard can't provide. Blackboard does lots of things, and it does really good on I'll say good, really good on assessments. But it doesn't necessarily do the best on if you want to use it for like self-check and things like this. That's where Quiz Poppers feature can be a supplement to Blackboard. You can even use it instead of Blackboard, but it's up to you on that part of it. I oftentimes want to do it in addition as a self-check feature, and that's where I like the assessment options inside of SoftChalk. Once again, it meets some quality matters. It doesn't meet, it helps you guide that to the quality matters standards. I know that I do lots of quality matters reviews, and I see lots of courses don't offer this self-check work that helps the students measure their success. And this is where SoftChalk, if you use SoftChalk and have some self-check work in there, that's a big one for 3.1 of Quality Matters standards. Also, what's going to help you is that you have varied kind of assessment tools. If you're using a quiz in Blackboard, you also might have a graded quiz using SoftChalk. You also have some quiz poppers using SoftChalk that pop up into different, little features. It's going to get that varied kind of tools that you want. And it also is really good for the 5.2, which is interaction. That's something you can't get with Blackboard. So not only is the independence feature going to be good, that it's getting you independent, it's also providing you things that Blackboard can't do at this time. So there's a few of the different study tools that you can use. This is just a sort of goofy little chart, but it shows you some of the different ways. Did you know, drag and drop, hotspot. Hotspot's a good one for me. I teach world regional geography, and sometimes I want to do very simple questions. Very simple one for me is the name of the Great Lakes. Probably our entire audience here can name every one of the Great Lakes, probably in addition to Lake St. Clair, which is sort of the almost extra Great Lake. But you would be surprised, students don't know that. I can use hotspot and have them actually point to the right part of which lake is which. So these are some of the really great self-assessment tools. And it's very easy to do it, just filling out forms. So adding another thing that the LMS can't do. Once again, another Quality Matters Standard 3.5, if a student has that multiple opportunities to self-measure their progress, it's just guiding you to meet Quality Matters even more. Okay, so now let's talk about what's happening to us right now, and then I'll probably do some questions and things as well too. We've been using SoftChalk now for a couple of years after that debacle, as Craig said. But now we've switched over to SoftChalk Cloud, and it is just now being sort of implemented throughout our college. Now I will say the one issue we did have was, in lots of ways I wish we had moved right to SoftChalk Cloud, which I don't even think was available at the time. There is some retraining because you do have to do things slightly different. But we are moving to SoftChalk Cloud. SoftChalk Cloud works almost exactly like regular SoftChalk, but it's real important that it's making us even more independent of the LMS. If you've used SoftChalk, the regular SoftChalk, you know that you do your work on the desktop version of SoftChalk, you publish it to Blackboard. Well, publish it still means materials are going up into Blackboard. Well, one of the big problems with us is that, and if you're a Blackboard customer, probably a customer at an LMS, it seems like you're always getting some kind of bill from Blackboard. That bill usually starts with $10,000 to $20,000, and it's usually because of space or too many users or different things like this. And that's invariable. You're going to get that with Blackboard or any LMS. They're all out to make lots of money for their company. So you can use SoftChalk as your own repository. And you can do both. You can use some of your space on Blackboard. You can put things on LMS, on SoftChalk Cloud, do a little bit of both. But for us, it's very important that we're trying to encourage lots of the materials put on SoftChalk Cloud to be independent, save space for us, and it's been a big help. Right now we are negotiating with Blackboard another increase in server space. And when I say that these bills start at $20,000, at this point I think ours is starting with $37,000. So you'll see how that goes. Another great benefit of SoftChalk for us is that we don't have to install software. At our college, and Sarah's already figured that out from working with us on this webinar, we've had problems at our college getting software installed on computers. I couldn't even do this webinar at the college. I'm at home now on my 13-year-old's computer because I couldn't get GoToWebinar installed there. Now, even though that's an isolated incident, it's just, you can see it sometimes, and if you've dealt with IT departments anywhere, you know that getting things installed is time-consuming. You can't just give software to faculty and they're going to be able to install it. We have to do work orders, and the faculty doesn't want to wait for a work order, so they're going, I don't want to deal with SoftChalk because then I have to get someone here to install it, and I'm not here on Tuesdays when they come. You don't have to worry about that on SoftChalk. It is a cloud-based platform that makes you so that you do not install anything. I've tested it at the college. I don't have to do anything. I'm running it from the browser, total cloud-based. And it allows you to access it everywhere. I mentioned that the college I work for doesn't have templates, doesn't have a set design. That's something I'm not a big fan of. I want set designs, at least somewhat. So since I can't mandate it that at the college, I wouldn't even dare. I'd be hung out to dry someplace. I did want to design templates that are optional, a template that I could give to a brand new faculty member and say, here's a course ready for you to go. You just need to add all your content, add a little bit of you, make some changes, make it more your course. So I designed, along with Greg, my coworker, we designed some templates. And we had lots of materials that are, I don't want to say they're boring. They're certainly not boring, but they're the standard things that you have to have in courses. Links to library resources, disability support, tutoring, student registration information, technical resources. And I've worked really hard with working with these various departments, especially our library, and having these standardized resources. If I'm using that in, if I'm doing that in Blackboard, I'm going to have some problems, and this just happened to us now. That if I have a template in Blackboard, I've given it out to faculty, I've got lots of different faculty using it, and they're linking to various library resources, what happens if those links change? And it did for us. And SoftChalk Cloud we weren't quite ready to use it to save me, but hopefully in the future this will save me. What happened is our web page for the whole college changed. The college changed links. So before it would be hartford.edu/library for links to the library. And there might be a specific page for disability support services or tutorials for the library, specific links we're linking to. Well, they're no longer there. Well, the problem is anyone who was using my template, well, they're using old links. I didn't have SoftChalk Cloud I didn't have it yet to use this, or I wasn't using this feature yet. Sort of wish I was. What I had to do is go through and make the changes in my own course and changes in the template, and then sort of forward to the faculty members to make the specific changes. What I'm doing in the future, and anyone who gets the template past this time, especially brand new faculty or people who are making new courses or redesigning, they'll get my template design, but all the links to the library resources, tutoring, disability, all the 5 big ones I use, plus a few others I occasionally use, those are now based on SoftChalk Cloud. What that allows me to do is anytime I need to make a change on that, I make the change on that one central repository in SoftChalk Cloud. Any faculty who are linking to that, they get the updated material. They don't have to do anything. It's becoming easier for us to deal with, and this whole presentation really is about, is making us independent of the LMS. And something we don't do a lot related to this is hopefully allow us to share more content between faculty. I don't know how it is at most other colleges, but our college, oftentimes faculty in the same department, they don't share anything with each other. Some colleges probably do a better job of that. I guess maybe our college is different. I doubt it. I bet it's very similar. That our faculty keep their content, and then maybe they'll have a person who sits 2 doors down, has got the same type of information, but they're using it in a completely different way. This will allow us to start sharing this content a little better. Now we're at the beginning stages. This is not happening overnight. But I think that people are realizing that they need to get away from just relying just on Blackboard or whatever LMS, have this in some kind of separate repository. Now this is a good time. I also wanted to tell you that I don't want to, like I said, I've been sort of trying to stay the middle ground. I don't want to diss our LMS. Blackboard has shockingly been pretty good lately. And they have some really great features now. There's some better repository features, things like that. Of course, they cost more. But there's some good ones, and we're starting to use lots of those. So we will use that, but we see no reason that we can't use both. And I think SoftChalk Cloud has really become, SoftChalk in general, but SoftChalk Cloud has become a favorite of our faculty, because they don't want to trust just Blackboard for everything. Okay, well that's my main thing, and then I think that Sarah may, if she has any questions from faculty, can relay them to me. I know Sarah's got to wrap up as well, but if you do need to contact myself or Greg, that's our email addresses. Mine's the easiest, being a Smith. But feel free to contact me for anything about SoftChalk, SoftChalk Cloud. And I think what's really important is to think about the 2 presenters of this presentation, in which Greg's not here, but Greg was all in on SoftChalk. I was a doubter for a long time. And I'm still slowly moving. I didn't jump in like Greg did, but I do know and realize that SoftChalk has helped me as both faculty and probably, since it pays a lot more, my work as an instructional designer, SoftChalk Cloud has made a big difference for me. So I know, Sarah, I sort of went through that pretty fast. I'm normally used to working with Greg on that, and we have more interaction. But I can take any questions or anything.
Yeah, that's okay, and I wish Greg could be here with us also, but thank you so much for your presentation. We do have one question. Marjorie asks, which version and service pack of Blackboard are you running?
We are on Blackboard 9.1, Service Pack 11. We just switched to 11 before the summer semester. We were all the way down, I think, Service Pack 7 before that. We made this big deal switch to Service Pack 11, and now we're already a couple behind. It's very difficult. We have lots of non-credit courses, and more importantly, we've got lots of nursing courses that run on weird schedules, so for being down even 1 or 2 days is a big deal. So we were very fortunate we got all the way up to 11. And I think that 11 and SoftChalk Cloud, they interact quite well.
And Diana has a question. I'm not sure if I understand it. She might want to clarify it a little bit. But she asks, you still have to place it in an LMS, correct? So your SoftChalk lessons, you then place them into Blackboard.
And for that is not true. We are using Blackboard, but part of the great thing about this is why it can be an independent thing for us, is that if we decide, let's say the college does something crazy and they don't want to pay the huge bill that we get from Blackboard, and it is getting bigger and bigger. If they don't want to pay for that and they say, okay, we're not doing our online courses, there's no way they would do that, but it's a crazy world we live in now. Government's still shut down for another 10 hours. Who knows? We understand it's a strange place. If they did that, no, we would have all this content in SoftChalk Cloud. We could link it to websites. We have a student portal, not one that we're really happy about, but we do have that. This kind of materials can be placed anywhere. Now, we're not using that currently very often at our college because we're pretty happy with how Blackboard provides us different things. But I know for when I teach my in-class class, that's sort of a weird thing, I tend to use the material that's linked off of Blackboard, but if I want to put that SoftChalk material on a CD or a USB drive or link it off of my faculty homepage, link it off of, maybe if I still can find an old GeoCities site, whatever, it's going to work fine.
Right, okay, and she did clarify, she's asking, so can we just get rid of Blackboard? But I think you kind of already answered that.
Well, like I said, you could. I don't know if I'm quite ready to do that, but I could see a spot where a college could say, we're a Blackboard school, we really need a Blackboard because we didn't have a place to put these materials, but you start using SoftChalk Cloud, you realize, hey, we can put most of our materials there and maybe go to Moodle or something like that. Now, there's other issues involved in that. Moodle, even though it's free, you still have to host it, you still have to staff it, and all that ends up usually costing just as much as paying someone. But yes, it can be done. I'm not sure I'd be ready for that, but it can be done.
And then we have another question from Marjorie also. She just asks, have you used SoftChalk to develop any training content for instructors or for students on Blackboard?
That is a great question. We are in the process of doing lots of that at this point. I think we actually technically have some material, for some training material, mainly for faculty that has been developed in SoftChalk, but we're really going full bore on that at this moment. Before I left to come home to use my teenager's computer, one of my coworkers was working with some faculty and designing some training for other faculty. And that's sort of the, a hidden gem, I guess, that we may not have to use Blackboard for some of those kind of things. Blackboard starts costing us lots of money per year. It's because of the space and the users. Well, maybe we could put faculty on something else. We don't have to use the LMS. It gives us that flexibility, and that's what we're loving.
Great. And so we have a couple questions on how your students actually access your SoftChalk lessons. And so I have a couple people saying they're having trouble envisioning how you actually use the SoftChalk cloud, how your students access these lessons through Blackboard.
Okay, what it does, I'll go back and go to the regular SoftChalk. What SoftChalk did was you could publish it to Blackboard, and it became like a link on a content page or a home page, and it would open in another window. SoftChalk Cloud's even lots easier than that. You essentially develop in SoftChalk Cloud, and then you get provided by SoftChalk Cloud on each page you develop, there's a link. So you can add that URL link to almost anywhere in your course. You could even, embed it into a table, so they're not, or not a table, but a frame, so they may not even be aware they're really going to another page, but they're going to an outside URL. It's just a URL link, and that's where it's getting us that flexibility, that I could put that link any place. So I've used it on the menu, like when I talked about that template where I've got library resources, things like that. I've just got a web link on a menu. Students don't even know it's going outside of Blackboard. Then it's suddenly showing up in that frame. Or I could put it in a home page of a course, make it obvious that's going to another window and another page. You can do a little bit of both. It's just a URL link. We like the old way that SoftChalk sort of published to it, but then, like I said, it's taking up space. Sometimes that actually confuses students more than just a simple link. But just think, any place you put in your course or even outside of Blackboard, if you can put a web link, there you go.
And a somewhat related question, Shannon says they do post the links for SoftChalk on Blackboard. However, they still use Blackboard-generated exams. So do you have any recommendations for exam implementation, for example, timed or randomized exams that can be embedded within a SoftChalk lesson?
And you know what, I have to say, as a faculty member, remember I told you I was a little slower to jump in. I still tend to do that old way. I'll keep SoftChalk for content and self-check work, and I use then Blackboard for tests. But I know lots of my faculty member, Greg especially, my coworker, he's doing lots more of the testing embedded in a SoftChalk and having it report back to Blackboard. You can do both. Either or, none of the either other, you've got lots of flexibility. So I don't really have just one way you can do it. Like, just say that it's up to you on how you want to do that. At our college, we've not mandated one or the other. We're very flexible on that, sometimes a little too flexible for me. But it does mean that as a faculty member, I can choose whether I want to just use Blackboard, I can use SoftChalk, I can use both in both content and quizzes.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that definitely answers the question. We have one more question. I'm not sure. Like you do not use Moodle, but we do have a question from Jack. He says most of the Blackboard issues seem to be from updates and issues from handling upgrades. For Moodle users, what are the benefits of independence from an LMS?
And I'm relatively experienced in Moodle.
Okay.
We experimented with Moodle. We just found that we didn't want to run the server ourselves. And if we went to Moodle rooms, which of course is now part of Blackboard, everything always comes back to Blackboard. But if we did that, we'd still have to pay money and pay people, or even if we put it on campus, we'd have to pay someone. And at this point, sometimes the human resources cost of people is much greater or difficult to deal with for administrations. So I've used Moodle. I also run a small web hosting company where I've played around installing Moodle myself. So I've used it plenty of times. I see that Moodle, I love Moodle, but Moodle's going to have some of the same problems that any LMS does, is that you're going to have to upgrade things, and who knows if the next time you upgrade is going to kill off a feature you like. It doesn't happen as much in Moodle, but it can. So I really think the benefits to Moodle users are the same. That it gets you away from just depending on the LMS, so that if something breaks, you're screwed. And trust us, from that debacle we had a couple years ago, you do not want to go through that. It gets us to a place where we can easily put things back together because we've got things out of LMS. I don't see any difference between Moodle and Blackboard and Desire to Learn and Canvas or whatever else is out there. They're all going to have these same issues, good or bad, and we want to sort of alleviate as much as we can of the bad.
Right, so you might have these same issues in any LMS, not just Blackboard.
You will have the same issues. Now, like I said, the debacle we had was we were switching from Blackboard's version of WebCT after they merged, bought, whatever. So that was a migration in-house. But I know lots of people. We've got a college in the state that's moving from Angel, which is of course now Blackboard as well, to Blackboard. I know a college that switched from Blackboard to Desire to Learn. And trust me that whenever you do that kind of migration, whether it's in-house or from one company to another, those companies make lots of promises saying, oh, well, everything will come over. Those don't. Or if they do come over, it's not the way you want. And that's where having something in SoftChalk, even if you don't want to go full on, you want to have it just as a backup, you know what, at least you have all your materials backed up in a nice, concise way that you can then put back together. So like I said, it's not just even upgrades in-house or migrations in-house. We have lots of colleges that are migrating from one platform to another, and even from Blackboard to Moodle, whatever it is, you just need to be prepared, and this gives us that preparation. And I know at our college we're always thinking like 3 years ahead on budgets, especially for LMSs, which means if I'm here 3 years from now, I might be making a switch to something else. I want to make sure as an instructional designer, and in that part of it, more importantly, as a faculty member, I want to make sure my material is ready to go. So
Right.
if something goes wrong, I can be up and running in hours rather than what we had problems with. Sometimes those things didn't fix in days. So you do not want that to happen. If you've got it in a nice, concise place, it just helps you out.
Right. So kind of piggybacking off of that, Dan asks, well, what if SoftChalk breaks? Now,
Well, I'm going to let Sarah deal with that one. But I will say for us, we're we're not naive. We want to make sure that we keep internal backups for lots of materials. I know that I think that for lots of our faculty members, we're probably still keeping some things in the old SoftChalk as a backup to SoftChalk Cloud. But I'm not going to talk. I'll let Sarah talk more about that, but I don't think they're going away anytime soon. But it is something you have to think about, I guess.
Right, and well, we have an excellent support team over here at SoftChalk, so if at any time something does go wrong with the SoftChalk lesson, just email help@softchalk.com and someone will get back to you relatively quickly. We did have another question come in. So,
this is my favorite part of the whole thing.
So Jack asks, just out of curiosity, what specific PowerPoint issues did you resolve with SoftChalk Create?
Here's what we've done is we've tried to also once again to be independent of the LMS. I'll be frank to you, we're not using just SoftChalk for lots of things. Obviously for testing we tend to back things up in Respondus. For PowerPoints, I encourage with faculty I work with to make backups and things like now I can't think of it though. Mind blanked. There's a platform that's sort of like YouTube for PowerPoints, and I use it all the time, and I just can't think of it. So sometimes we'll use a little bit of everything. I know that for me, I use this other platform, SlideShare, slideshare.net or slideshare.com. I think it works on both. I put my presentations up in SlideShare. Then it gives me embed codes. I'll take that embed code and embed it into SoftChalk. I know of some faculty who they want the students to see the real PowerPoint version of it, so they'll still link to PowerPoints, things like that. But I also see lots of faculty who would prefer that their students print out their PowerPoints in a handout view, 3 slides to a page with the the lines next to it so they can write notes. So what they'll do is they'll make PDFs of that. Then they'll embed the PDFs into SoftChalk. It's really quick and easy to do that. So there isn't one solution. There's lots of things that's open to you. I've used both. I think at this point I do that. I'll have my PowerPoint embedded in the SoftChalk coming from SlideShare. Actually, I do 3 things because I'm a little anal about that. I have embedded from SlideShare. I usually offer the PowerPoint link itself, and then I also will embed a printable PDF from Handouts view. Now you don't have to do all that. You could just do one or the other, but it gives you, once again, more flexibility. And I do say that linking to the PowerPoints is probably the biggest problems we have in any platform, PowerPoints and Word documents. So if any of those 3 options that I use that I would recommend you don't use would be just doing that. If you could do it in Handout View or embed it from something like SlideShare, that's probably the route I'd go.
Great. Well, it looks like you've answered all of our questions. If anyone else has any additional questions, feel free to type them into the questions panel now. I'm going to take the screen back, Richard.
Okay.
And I will let everyone know where they can learn more information. So if you want more information about SoftChalk, you can visit our website at softchalk.com, or you can email us at learnmore@softchalk.com. And you can also email Richard if you have any additional questions for him. Let me see if any additional questions have come in. Greg asks, can you use this for a grade book?
You wouldn't use that as a grade book per se. You can have a report to other places, and I believe there is more features in that, and that's something SoftChalk would give you some more questions out. Nothing that we're using at this time, but I believe you can do a bit more on that. It's not something I'm comfortable in talking about at this point, but I think there's some work, and Sarah, you could probably answer that a bit more. I think SoftChalk's probably going to think a bit more about some of that kind of work.
Right, yeah. We had one more question also. Let me check.
But one thing is, while Sarah's looking, SoftChalk has done a great job of continuing adding features, and that's where it's got me off the, I was sort of the side of the pool. Now I'm jumping in because of the features that they've added and the way that they've made this easier to use.
And yeah, it looks like you've actually answered all of the questions. So,
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. Richard, do you have anything else that you'd like to add as a closing remark or anything?
No, like I said, I think I've said it before, it's just this whole thing we're talking about is sort of two things: becoming independent of the LMS and also making sure we have content for us that meets certain standards based on Quality Matters. And if anyone's got any questions, feel free to email me.
Yes, and you can email Richard. His email is up on the screen, rsmith@harvard.edu.
It's one of the easier emails.
And thank you so much, Richard, and thank Greg for us as well for this presentation.
Yeah, and I'd like to say Greg has done lots of work on this presentation. He just got asked to teach a class, and that's the way things happen sometimes at a community college or any college. So.
Right. Well, I'm sure he had a large part in putting this together as well. So thank him for us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon.